Alright, let's talk about resilience. Resilience is a word you may have heard of, but it may not mean exactly what you think it does. In fact, we'll hopefully dispel some myths about resilience in this video. The first thing we need to know is the definition of resilience, and that's the ability to overcome adversity. Now that can mean lots of different things to lots of different people, but the information I'm going to share with you should hopefully apply to most situations. Now, fair warning, this is the positive psychology of pop music, and I'll actually borrow from different fields of psychology. But just like with most topics in this field, there's not always common agreement, and some people will view a concept one way, while others view it completely differently. So again, I'm presenting you this information from a positive psychological perspective. But from that perspective, there's three myths about resilience that I hope to break down for you. The first is that you're either born with resilience or you're not. Now, there's a lot of biopsychological evidence that suggests that some people may be born with a better capacity for resilience than others. But be very careful about any time you hear that kind of evidence, because it doesn't come from experimental research. We can't do that with people, and a lot of the times we're just talking about correlations, we're talking about relationships. And even if it is true, it doesn't mean you can't build resilience even if you're not as genetically predisposed as other people. So the first thing I want to share with you about resilience is that you can build it even if you don't have any at the moment. The second myth is that you have to feel the pain of whatever it is you're experiencing. Some people will look at folks going through tragedy and go, wow, they're dealing with it so well, but they don't feel any pain. But that's not what resilience is. Resilience involves feeling pain. Adversity and pain don't go away just because you've learned how to cope and how to deal and overcome with them. So the common misperception is if I figure out how to be resilient, pain will go away. That's not going to happen, and you have to kind of own that. You have to kind of accept that. The third myth I want to break down for you is that resilience is this really abnormal thing that really special people have. Most people in their lives will demonstrate resilience. So again, if you don't think of yourself as a resilient person, maybe you actually are. And maybe it's important to go back and think about some of the experiences you've had in your life. And we'll actually talk about that right now, because I'm going to hopefully give you 4 ways that you can develop your resilience if it's something you feel like you could benefit from. I've actually picked up these tips from personal experience from different fields in psychology, from different articles. They've helped me a little bit, so hopefully they'll do the same for you. The first tip on building resilience is to feel the pain. Yes, I'm still talking about pain. A lot of folks think the positive psychology of pop music is just about sunshine and puppies and rainbows and ignoring all the badness in the world. That's actually not it at all. In fact, you can't appreciate and recognize the goodness if you don't know how to acknowledge and process the badness. So you have to let yourself feel what it is you want to feel. Sometimes we think resilience is pushing down those negative emotions or diverting our attention in other places. That's not actually overcoming the adversity, that's not dealing with it. And inevitably it will come back up. Doesn't mean you can't be resilient later on, but resilience involves acknowledging and feeling the pain. The second is to reach out for help. Now look, I'm an extremely introverted, shy person. Just because of the way that I grew up, I had to deal with a lot of pain and a lot of situations by myself until I was in my early 20s. I never really talked about my feelings or asked for help for anything. So that's how I can speak to this and tell you how much better it is when you do that. It's not easy for some people. For some of you it is easy, and you know that you can reach out and talk to a friend or a family member, get on a chat room, talk to your professor, whoever it may be. But for some of us, we have to learn to reach out to people. So it's very important to do that. When you do that, what you find is other people have gone through the same thing, and even if they can't give you specific tips on how to deal with it, just talking about it and knowing that somebody out there supports you can help build your ability to deal with whatever it is that's going on. The third is to remember your past successes. Now, I was a counselor for a brief period of time, and this was one of my favorite things to do with people. I love helping people feel good about themselves, and a lot of people with depression and low self-esteem and anxiety, that will come from a place where they just don't feel like they've accomplished anything. They don't feel like their life has been worthwhile. So it can be very helpful to think about the times in your life that you have succeeded, particularly those where you had adversity in your way. You know, if you're struggling with a college class, may not be the first time that's happened to you. So think about the last time that you did that. And maybe you overcame it because of this situation or this strategy that you used. Whatever the case may be, you overcame it. I like to tell people, simply by being alive, you are demonstrating that you've overcome adversity. Life is hard the second we come out of the womb. There's all kinds of things we have to deal with, some of which as adults we deal with all the time, so we don't even think about them as adversity anymore. So again, it's just kind of a mindset where you recognize that most of us in our lives display resilience quite frequently. And so you think back on those times where you have overcome adversity that can motivate you to do it in your current situation. The fourth is to learn from other people. Maybe you haven't gone through something specific, and so you feel like those past successes don't really relate. That's one of the reasons why I love pop culture as much as I do. A lot of folks think that you can't really benefit from TV and movies and music, but for me, those mediums are how you learn from other people. Comic books, I was a huge comic book fan as a kid, and reading about some of the situations that my favorite characters were going through helped me deal with them when I actually got to those places in life. Because I could think back on an X-Men and how he dealt with leaving his family. Or I could look back on an Avenger and think about how she dealt with her substance use. So believe it or not, I feel very strongly about lots of different mediums and how we can learn from the positive messages within them. And that's certainly true of music. Music in a lot of ways is people expressing how they have overcome adversity. So we can learn a lot just by listening to other people. So again, the 4 tips I'm giving you to deal with resilience is to feel the pain, reach out for help, remember your past successes, and learn from others. The last thing I want to talk about is sometimes when adversity hits, we think that the best solution is to try to take away as much stress from our life as we can, to try to take away all the negativity. I'm not saying that's not helpful, but research suggests that what's more impactful in dealing with stress and anxiety and dealing with adverse situations is not removing those reactive characteristics, things that happen after the problem, but actually enhancing the protective factors. Protective factors are those things we've been talking about that occur before the adversity even happens. So again, it's one of those kind of like your hurricane preparedness. If a hurricane hits and you're dealing with it, well, you could take away some stress from your life and I guess stop doing your homework, but that will later have consequences. Probably not the best example, but the idea is if you prepare for adversity, when it hits, you're going to be much more able to deal with it as opposed to just trying to strategize in that difficult situation. So by thinking about those 4 tips I just gave you, you can actually enhance your protective factors and enhance your resilience as a result. So probably one of the most important things I hope you take away from this entire experience is that psychology, and I use psychology very broadly in terms of understanding people through any medium, including music, can be so helpful in helping us deal with those difficult times that unfortunately we all have to go through. Some will have worse times than others, but we all can benefit from learning how to build our own resilience.